Good morning, everyone. My name is Hector Jacques, and I am privileged to be chair of the Board of Directors for the Halifax Port Authority. On behalf of the Halifax Port Authority, welcome to Port Days 2018. We are joined today by many of our elected officials, two of whom are right at a table at which the CEO and I sit, His Worship Halifax Mayor Mike Savage and Andy Fillmore. Thank you for being here with us. I would also like to offer a warm welcome to our CN representatives, Mr. Keith Reardon, Michael Foster, and Dan Bresselin. We will be hearing from both Michael and Dan during the business session. Thank you to the entire CN team for sponsoring the opening reception last night. I know many of you took part in the Port Days golf event, and I know Vice Chair Tom Hayes, I was told, shot lights out. Thank you, Calvin, Wooden, and Series, the tournament sponsors. We are delighted to have Mayor Savage join us for another year. Before we call on him to the stage, I would like to speak to you briefly about the infrastructure planning and that is underway here at the Port of Halifax. Our Vice Chair Tom Hayes, the good golfer, provided an overview for us last night, and I'd like to give a recap for those who were not able to attend last night. Our plan, which will get us the capacity and infrastructure we need heading into 2020, is the most cost-effective and minimal impact option we studied. It starts off with a temporary extension of our existing infrastructure at the South End Container Terminal, and it will allow Halterm to simultaneously serve two of the ultra-class container vessels that first started calling on Halifax in June of 2017. This is very important. Right now, Halterm can easily take one ultra-class vessel, but for schedule reliability, it is vital that Halifax can berth and service two at the same time. Because without that ability, without that service guarantee, the shipping lines will bypass Halifax in favor of a U.S. port that can make that service commitment. I'd like you to consider that for a minute. If we can't make room in Halifax for the big ships, we run the very real risk of those vessels and the cargo they carry bypassing Canadian ports entirely. What that means is Canada's trade agenda would be dependent on U.S. policy and regulations for this country's transatlantic trade. Let me draw a very similar analogy today. The Trans Mountain Pipeline is of national significance for getting Western Canadian oil and gas resources to international markets. In a small way, our second ultra-class berth is similarly vital to securing the Canadian and Atlantic supply chain for this part of the world. Work on the temporary extension is going to start in the coming months. We will be adding approximately 135 meters to the existing length of the pier to bring the total to about 800 meters. And that will ensure that our port remains a competitive international gateway for our region and our country as we continue with phase 2 planning. A preferred option for permanent expansion is to infill the finger piers at ocean terminals, which will expand Halterm's yard space, and it will create another berth with the capacity to serve ultra-class vessels, securing our future for the next 30 years and beyond. Just like the lapel pin I wear, whose motto is Desiderantis Meliorum Patriam, which means, for those who don't know, they desire a better country. This, in my view, and I was saying this to Madeline, who was sitting at our table, this will ensure that we indeed have a better country for all now and into the future when Canadian transatlantic trade moves over Canadian ports. We are also concurrently in the early stages of exploring options for a new cruise berth at the Port of Halifax. And on a day like today, with 3 cruise ships in port carrying around 7,000 cruise guests, you can see for yourselves the importance of the cruise industry to Halifax and Nova Scotia. I would like at this point to thank my fellow board members for their dedication to the entire infrastructure planning that has taken place for the last couple of years, and of course to Karen and her team for their efforts and all the key port partners we have been working with over the past couple of years. And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce another one of our key partners. Mayor Mike Savage continues to lead the charge in transforming Halifax into the most livable, entrepreneurial, and inclusive city in the world.